Hi guys, this is Ebony from What a Stitch Up, and today I wanted to share with you my latest make. This is the Vixen from Seams Legit Sewing. It is a gorgeous little bowler bag, and what I really love about this one is it has no binding at all and no drop-in lining, so this one is fully birthed. So I will link for you below where you can get the pattern for this one, and also the waterproof canvas that I use from the inside. I get most of my waterproof canvas from Seams Legit in a bunch of different colors, so I'll link that for you below. Tori has her own tutorial for how to put this one together, so I'll link that as well for you to have a look at. So if you want to see how it all goes together, let's get sewing. So here we have all the pieces that we're going to need for the Vixen bag. We've got two of our exterior main pieces and the two matching vinyl pieces to go with them. The fusible foam that we're going to be adding to the exterior. One of our lining pieces here with two of our slip pocket pieces. I like to clip them together in little sections like this so it's easier for me to keep track of where I'm up to. So this is the zip and the zipper pocket lining with one of the lining pieces as well. The base and two sides for the lining, and the base in vinyl and the two sides for the exterior as well as their corresponding fusible foam pieces. The zipper and two lining zipper gusset pieces and the two exterior zipper gusset pieces with their corresponding fusible foam. Four of the strap connectors in vinyl. What I'm trying to show here, if the camera will cooperate, is that I've added a thin strip of double-sided tape to each side of each of the strap connectors. That'll help us hold them in place later on. So I've got a little name tag. You'll need 4 D-rings, 3 zipper pulls, and also some rivets. So the first thing we need to do is grab one of your exterior body pieces and the matching vinyl top and match up the center markings on both of those pieces and clip. And then match up the edges and clip these. I like to use a couple of clips on the edges just to stop them twisting. Now we need to clip the top two edges together. It sort of feels like it's not going to match up, but if you just take it slow and go and clip as you go, it does match up perfectly. Sometimes you just have to wriggle it around a little bit to get it to line up. But when you've got it all clipped, it should look like this. It'll sort of feel like it's bent and puckered a bit, but that is correct. That's how it should look. So you're just going to sew along the whole top piece here. And it will look like this. So I like to finger press down, and I also use this little seam roller because obviously you can't iron on the vinyl. It just helps that seam to just sit a bit more flush. So making sure that your seam allowance is pointing up towards the vinyl section, we're going to top stitch along here with a long stitch length nice and close, and do the same for your other exterior panel as well. So this is what your pieces will look like all top stitched. And now it's time to add our fusible fleece to the other side. So just check, make sure that the glue side is down to the fabric. And we're just going to line them up as centered as possible. Again, checking the glue side is down. And while we're doing these pieces, we're going to grab all of our other pieces that need the foam as well. I've got the 2 zipper gusset pieces here, the 2 side exterior pieces, and also the vinyl base. So I'm going to take these and fuse them. And once that's all done, we're going to prepare our vinyl strap connectors. So removing the strip for the double-sided tape, we're just going to fold these in to meet in the center. You can draw a line down the center and fold them in one by one to line up with the center line, but I find it's much quicker and just as easy to fold them in half so they meet nicely together. And again, I use my little roller tool partly to make sure it's got a nice edge on it, and also it helps if your double-sided tape isn't that strong, to make sure it's pushed down into the fibers on the back of the vinyl. So you'll need to do that with all 4 of your strap connector pieces. Then we grab one of our exterior pieces and find the center using a ruler or the measurements on the cutting mat. I'm going to measure out 2.5 inches either side from that center cutting mark, and I'm just using a chalk pencil to make the mark on the bottom of the bag. Now from that line we're going to measure up 6 inches and draw a little line at the top and on the side so we can line up our pieces correctly. On the side and across the top. Now I'm going to take one of my D-rings and fold over the end of the strap connector, and I just measure that the folded section should be about 1 inch. And when I'm happy with that, I just grab a little clip just to clip it temporarily. I don't like to use clips on the vinyl because they can leave marks. So I'll grab my double-sided tape and I'll just lay a strip of the double-sided tape down the center and remove my clip nice and quickly. And then taking the backing off the tape, we're going to line up the strap with the mark that we made at the bottom, at the top. And we should just be able to see that side line that we made as well. So when you're happy with the placement of the strap connector, give it a good press to make sure that tape will hold it in place while you sew. And I'll add a couple of clips just on the edge so they're in the seam allowance just in case they leave a mark. and we're going to sew up nice and close to the edge, across the top and back down the other side. And we're going to do that for both of the strap connectors on this piece. Here's what it'll look like once we've attached all 4 of the strap connectors to both exterior panels. We're going to choose which one we would like to be the front of our bag so that we can connect our little bag tag. So I'm going to measure the distance here between our 2 vinyl connectors and center the tag where I would like it. Draw a little mark, and I'm going to use my stiletto to poke a hole all the way through. Sometimes it's a bit tough to get through the foam, so we make sure it goes through. And then I like to use my little snips just to snip the gap in between and make sure that the hole goes all the way through nice and clean, so the little bag tag can easily go through. So we'll put on the washer on the back, push the pins out, and double check, make sure it's all straight. And then we have our little bag tag. Now next we're going to assemble the zipper gusset. So I like to get my exterior pieces and sit them next to each other how I would like them to appear on the bag. Then when I grab my zipper, I will put it right sides together and line it up on the inside line. So this is important, especially if you've got a directional fabric. You can decide whether or not you want both of the pieces to face the same way so they match up either side of the zip, or if you want them to face outside so that it doesn't really matter which way is the front or back of the bag. So just put them out how you would like them and then line up your zipper with the inside line. So I'm just going to clip it all the way along. Now with this piece, I have not added my zipper pull yet. I will add it afterwards, but it just reduces a little bit of bulk when sewing and we don't have to dodge the zip. And I've got my lining piece and I've popped that face down. So right sides are together, making sure it all lines up. And we're going to sew along the edge here. Now we're going to open it out and we're going to make sure that the seam allowance is folded up towards the exterior side. And so with the lining out of the way, we're going to top stitch all the way along on the exterior piece, and we do not want to top stitch the lining. So make sure that's definitely out of the way. So now we have one side top stitched. We're going to tuck the lining back out of the way. We're going to grab our second lining piece and pop that down and put our zipper on top and just hold that in place with some clips. Then we're going to grab our other exterior piece, line it up how you'd like it and flip it. And line that one up and add it into all the clips. And we're going to stitch along the edge of this one as well. Now, the same as our last piece, we're going to make sure that the lining is out of the way, and we're going to fold the seam allowance towards the exterior piece. And then we are going to top stitch along the exterior piece here, making sure to keep your lining out of the way. With both sides top stitched, it should look like this. And it's time to attach our zipper. So you can just have one zipper and have it open from one side to the other. But today I'm going to have two zippers so that you open them from the middle. So I always have a look before I attach my zippers just to double check what side the last tooth is on. So in this case it's on the left. And then after I've added my zipper, I just double check that it's the same, and that way I know my gusset pieces are always going to line up exactly how they were. Sometimes it takes me a couple of goes to get the zipper on exactly how I'm happy with it. Until I do, I just pull it off and keep having another go. And then once I'm happy, the last tooth is on the left, I'm satisfied with that. And I'll pull this one to the middle and we're going to put our other zipper on from the other end. So exact same thing, I double check, last tooth on the left, fiddle around with it a bunch of times until I'm happy. Last tooth on the left, and I'm going to pull both zippers to the middle. Always pull them to middle to check, just to make sure they meet nicely and there's no big buckles, but because we checked the teeth, it should be perfect. And that's what it'll look like. So the next thing I'm going to do is assemble the slip pocket that goes on the lining. So I've got my two slip pocket lining pieces here and I'm going to assemble that. So I'm going to put them right sides together and clip them. Now this is done with waterproof canvas, which can be a little bit slippery, so I always clip the waterproof canvas quite a bit, just because you don't want it to move while you're sewing. And we're just going to sew across the top here. Now I've just added a few little snips just on this inner curve, just because when we flip it out, it just helps that top seam to be a bit sharper. So I'm just going to fiddle around with this and finger press to try and get that seam nice and crisp. And then we're going to top stitch all the way along the top here. Now I'm going to fold these pieces to get the center markings. We probably don't need it quite yet, but we can do it while we're here. So I just find the center marking of the slip pocket, and then I'm going to grab the lining piece and I'm going to do the same thing with this. Just fold it in half, do a tiny little snip at the bottom, because we will need this later on. And we're going to grab our lining pocket and line it up on our lining piece. And we're going to clip all the way around the outside to hold it in place. Again, the waterproof canvas can be quite slippery. And then we're going to baste right nice and close to the edge all the way around. Now that that's all basted, we need to mark a line down the center of the pocket. So you can use a chalk pencil or heat erasable ink, or if you've got the waterproof canvas, you can just fold and press quite firm and you'll get a quite crisp fold line down the center. So what we're going to do with this is sew, starting from the bottom, we're going to sew up one side of the crease, across the top, and down the other side. And then you will have this. So you can see the two rows of stitching I've got there either side of the crease. And then we can put that one to the side and start on our other lining piece, which is going to have our zipper pocket in. So we're going to take our zipper pocket lining and we're going to fold that one in half. And again, crease nice and firmly across the bottom there. And we're going to open it up so it is right sides down and get our ruler. And we are going to measure down from the crease 1/2 inch, and we are going to mark in 3/4 inch from each side and draw a line. And then down from that line, we are going to measure 3/8 inch and draw another line and match up the box. So now we're going to paste the pocket lining piece right sides together with one of our liner pieces. I did decide to just make a little crease mark in the center of both of these to help line it up properly. And we're going to position it 1.5 inches from the bottom of the main lining piece and line up those center marks. And then I normally just grab a couple of clips and clip it up the top just so it doesn't move. Now I do have these bigger clips as well. You can see the difference in size here that I wanted to use to clip on the bottom, but then they're not big enough anyway. So I'm just going to add them up the top here. And now what I'm going to do is sew around the box. And when you've done that, it'll look like this. And then to cut inside the box, I just fold and make a little snip just so I can get my scissors in. And then I'm going to snip most of the way to the end. I'm going to stop maybe 1 centimeter or 3/8 inch from the end, and then from that point we're going to cut almost to the corner, but don't snip the stitching. And we're going to do that on both ends for all 4 corners. And then it will look like this, and you'll have this funny little triangle piece at the end. And then we're going to turn the pieces through the pocket. So I finger press along the edges first, and then pull the lining pieces through the hole that we made, and just try and even out those seams and give them a good press. It can sometimes bunch a little bit on the edges. You can see that with mine, but after we get the zip on, it sorts itself out. Then we're going to take the zip and attach our pull. Same way I always do, check the end tooth, put it on. If I'm not happy with it, I take it off and go again. Now just to stop the zip slipping around when I'm trying to attach it into the pocket, I'm just going to add a little bit of double-sided tape. You can add it to both sides or not use it at all, but with the waterproof canvas being a little bit slippery, I'll just put a little bit on just to hold it in place. Have a little look to work out where I want it, then remove the tape and line it up. And that's normally enough to hold it in place for me to sew around it. But if you need more, if you want the tape all the way around, then you definitely can. So now I'm going to top stitch around the zip nice and close. And it will look like this. You can see I've got nice and close to the opening there. Still got a little bit of puckering on the edge, but once you put your exterior side gusset on, that'll help smooth those out. So now what we're going to do is sew the sides of our pocket lining. So we fold it along the original crease, match up the bottom, and clip up the sides where we're going to sew. I find the easiest way to do this is to have it lining side down and just fold over these top flaps so you've got access to the underneath. And we're not going to sew the bottom, so we're going to leave this bit open because we will use that later on. So here we have the sides sewn up and we've left the bottom open. I'm just going to quickly fold these out because later when it comes time to sew up the hole, it's much easier if they're already folded and have a bit of a crease. There we go, and that's another section done. Next we grab the base and the sides in your lining fabric, and we're going to put right sides together, attach the sides to each end of the base piece. And this is where we change to a 1/2 inch seam allowance. So we're going to sew across both of the ends using a 1/2 inch seam allowance. We're going to do the same with the exterior, but we need to prepare the base first. We're going to add some bag feet or purse feet. So on the pattern, it's got markings where the feet should go, and I have hole punched them so that I can mark the exact locations for the feet, so it saves measuring. So I'll just put a little dot on. And then you need some sort of hole punch tool to be able to punch these out. I've got a press, but you can use a hand tool as well. And you can see the little holes there. Now I always keep my little scrap bits of vinyl for just like this. So I just put them on the back just as a little bit of reinforcement. These particular feet are just a pin, but you can get rivet ones or screw-in ones. These ones are just nice and quick. There we go. Now we're going to grab our 2 side pieces and attach them in the same way that we did the base, but just check your pattern, make sure that you've got them the right way up because you want the bottom of your side panel to be touching the base. And just like the lining, we're going to sew with a 1/2 inch seam allowance down each side. And then we're going to top stitch the exterior. We didn't bother with the liner, but pull these seam allowances towards the base because we're going to top stitch on the vinyl here, nice and close to that seam. So it'll look like this. And I've just added a little bit of tape as well on the back of those purse feet. So to make our zipper gusset piece, you'll need the lining base and sides that we just put together. And we're going to attach the lining to the lining pieces on the zipper piece. So I'm just pulling them out straight, and we're going to line up the edges. And clip on these little wing bits. So we're definitely keeping the exterior out of the way. And we're going to sew with a 1/2 inch seam allowance from the edge only up to the first row of stitching that you see. So we're not going to sew across the middle, just from one side into that first row of stitching. And then on the other piece, the same, from the first row of stitching across to the side. So we will not be sewing in the middle. So do both ends at the same time. So you can see here that I have not stitched across the middle on either of the ends. There's that little section without stitches, and I can actually poke all the way through there, so there is a gap. So now that we've done that, we need to do exactly the same thing but with the exterior. So line up the ends and clip just on the little wing pieces, making sure to keep the liner out of the way. And then sew from this side, move the liner out of the way, so from the edge to the first line of stitching on both sides, and exactly the same on the other end. So just like with the liner, you'll have your stitches from the side to the line, and then a gap in the middle. So what we're going to do now is we're going to close up that gap by starting where we stopped our stitching before, and we're just going to sew from there to there, just only to sew the gap closed. So you'll be sewing through both the liner and the exterior, but only for this one small section. So you can see I've just sewn across the gap in the middle, which has just helped us close off the gap on the outside there. So now that it looks like this, we want to find the center marking for the top and the bottom of the liner. So I just line up the seams and then make a little snip, and I've done that for the top and the bottom as well, and done that on both sides. So we grab one of our lining pieces and find the top and bottom of that piece as well. And then right sides together, we're going to clip in place the top and bottom markings. And then we're just going to work our way around clipping as we go. I like to start on the straight sections, and then you can do all your easing on the corners. And once you've got it all clipped, we're going to turn it over so the lining panel is sitting flat, and we're going to sew from the gusset side, because that way we can move all of this out of the way as we sew, keeping the base nice and flat. Once it's all sewn, I like to check on the inside and make sure I haven't missed any spots or got any puckers that need to be fixed. But that looks okay. So then we're going to grab our other lining piece, and we're going to do the same thing, find the top and bottom. But we're going to need to leave a turn hole. So I'm just going to mark a section on the bottom just so I remember not to sew that bit shut. And we're going to match up top and bottom, and same as before, clip all the way around. I wasn't going to make you watch me clip it all again, so here we are, all clipped. And also I realized I'd put my markings on the side, but we sew from the gusset panel, so I just copied them over to the gusset panel so I can see them. And we're going to do the same thing. So gusset side up, I'll start at one of my marks, go all the way around and stop at the other mark, and do a back stitch with the start and stops. So I've left my turn hole open. And now we're going to do the exact same thing with the exterior pieces. So with these, I didn't want to fold them, so I've actually used the pattern piece to mark the top and bottom on these. And in the exact same way that we did with the liner, we're going to match top and bottom, clip them all around, and then sew in the exact same way. So now that we've sewed on all of our panels, you can see it's starting to look like a bag. So you want to grab the liner and stretch it out so you can see this is the shape of one of the side panels. So you want to grab the very, very top of the side panel, and we're going to match that up to the top of the exterior panel as well. So there still should be little center markings there. So we're going to clip those. We're only going to put a couple of clips just right across the very top. And we're only going to sew in that little section. So we're just going to sew within the seam allowance, and we're going to do the same thing on the other side. So what this step is actually doing is tacking up the lining so that it stays nice and tight and you don't have a saggy roof of your lining falling down into your bag. And once you've sewn those top two sections, we're just going to trim all of the seam allowance down all the way around these side panels, but we're not going to trim our turn hole. So you can see the little section I've sewn across the top, and I've used my pinking shears and trimmed down all the seams on the exterior and the liner, but I've left the turn hole. So now it's time to use the turn hole. So I'm going to reach my hand all the way down into the bottom corner, and I'm going to push it in as far as I can so that my other hand can grab a good handful. And I'm going to slowly pull it out, turning gently as I go because it's not a very big hole with all this foam. So now it's just time to push out all the corners, make sure everything sits nicely. And I like to squish all of my seams on a bag like this. Just really encourage it to sit the way that you want it to, and those curves are nice and smooth and not jagged. So you can be quite firm and rough with these seams to loosen them up a little bit and get them to sit smooth. So now to sew up the hole in the liner, you're going to open the interior zip pocket, reach your hand down through the hole in the bottom of the pocket and grab the bottom of the liner where we left the turn hole and pull it all up through the pocket. We're going to clip that hole closed, and then we're going to sew it closed and trim the seam allowance. Now I'm going to push the lining back down through the pocket hole, and it's time to close up the bottom of the pocket. So those folds that we did earlier make this really easy. Sorry it's off camera. I kept dragging it towards me. So just going to fold those edges in, clip, and then as close as you can to the edge, just sew that one shut. Then you can poke that one back down in the pocket, and our bag is all closed up. Just spending some time smoothing out the lining. And our bag is pretty much done. We just need to do the straps now. Now for my straps, I decided that I would do a vinyl strap with a little feature of my fabric. So I'm just going to fold the sides of this in to meet the center. Then I'm going to press this really well over with my iron. So it'll look like this, pressed in nice and straight. And we're going to do the same thing with the vinyl that we did before with our strap connectors. So I've put a strip of double-sided tape down each side, and then we're going to fold that in to meet in the center, same as before, and just press it nice and firmly all the way along to make sure that tape holds nicely. Now you don't have to do this type of strap. You can do all vinyl or all cotton. I do just really like this look. I did actually make a all vinyl strap, but this vinyl actually has a little bit of stretch to it, so I don't want stretch in my strap. So adding the coloured cotton fabric takes away that stretch. So you can see here we're just going to have a little bit of the vinyl peeking through on the sides, which I think looks quite cute. So we're going to stick this on so it doesn't move while we're trying to sew it. So I'm just going to add a strip of double-sided tape all the way down the center of the vinyl, and then we're going to place the cotton wrong sides together, nice and even and centered all the way down. And now we're just going to top stitch nice and close to the edge of the fabric down both sides of our strap. And when you've done 2 straps, you'll have this. You can see I've got nice and close to the edge there. Now I'm going to mark the holes to punch out for our rivets. So I'm going to just put a little mark 1/2 inch up and then 3/4 of an inch up from that. I'm going to do this on all 4 ends. And then we're going to take our press or our hole punch tool, whatever you're using, to cut those through. Now you can decide which way you want to put these on. You can have it so you can see the colour when your strap's on, or when you put your bag down, the straps will flick down, so you can have it the other way if you would prefer to have the colour showing when your bag's not being worn. Up to you. I prefer having the colour up whilst you're carrying it, so I'm going to do mine this way. So I'm going to thread from the outside up, fold it under, and I'm going to grab my rivet, thread it through both layers, put the cap on, and you should feel it just go click, and that'll hold there for now. So I'm going to do the same for all 4 of my rivets. To set my rivets, I'm going to be using my press again. So I've changed out the dies from my hole punch die to my rivet setting die. So I'm going to position the rivet carefully in place and push down just until I feel that pop. We don't need to push too hard or you end up crushing your rivets, which is definitely no fun to try and get them out once you do that. So nice and gentle just until you feel the pop. And we'll do that for all 4 of our straps. And there we have it. I absolutely love how this one turned out. I think it's such a great little bag. I love the size, the structure, opens beautifully. I love these colours on it. We've got 2 slip pockets inside, the big open area in the centre, and we've got the little slip pocket the little zip pocket as well on the inside there. Thanks for watching my tutorial of sewing the Vixen from Seams Legit. I hope you found it useful and you'll be able to sew along to make your own. If you enjoy my tutorials, don't forget to subscribe so that you can be notified when I put up future tutorials. Thanks guys, bye!